Hey guys, Somebody's Gone here, and welcome to this episode of Hindsight Rotations. Today we're going to be watching TSM ZexRow and breaking down his gameplay from the Elite Cup this past weekend. It was hosted by the practice server, did a great job. ZexRow finished in third place, and he did some pretty interesting stuff, and definitely some pieces we're going to be able to take away. He was not contested in early game. He lands orchards and was given that for free all 6 games. So we're not really going to watch any early game. I will talk about his loadout though, because there's a specific loadout he looks for each game. He goes for an AR, a shotgun. Typically he will look to upgrade the shotgun to a purple pump. And then he will hold a shield and a health, as well as a harpoon. He doesn't normally fish unless his rotate forces him through the center island, and he'll fish due to moving through that area, but his loot path is typically not going to be giving him fishing spots, so it's going to be, for the most part, mini shields and bandages or med kits. But that being said, that's his loadout, and let's dive right in, talk about some major themes we see and what you guys can use from his gameplay to help yourself improve. Alright, so let's talk about some of the key themes that we're going to be looking for while watching this gameplay. One of them we'll see right now is he doesn't like to take mid-game fights and typically goes for tags at a distance to get storm surge damage. The second one is he has great awareness. He always knows what's going on around him, whether it be mid-game or late game. He understands where other players are, how they're rotating, and how he should rotate. Then, he's very patient. We see ZexRow, look and wait for other players to rotate. He has no problem rotating late. Finally, he likes to rotate on height on late game and is very risk adverse during the mid game. So during this is actually something I want to point out. This is a potential fight of mid game, but we see what I like to do, or what I like to call, an engage to disengage. ZexRow pushes up on this boxed player, looks to take the height and the advantageous position on this player and engages on him, but doesn't look to hold this fight. Both him and this player have to rotate, so they get what they need out of it and then move on. But he continues to let this player know he is watching him as he's rotating forward. It's just a quick example of disengage, or an engage to disengage. Zex is actually pretty good at this. And we see this a couple times. This will be the only example I show. But another thing that we'll see here, and it's consistent throughout the games, is that Zex isn't looking to get middle of zone almost ever. He's fine with chilling in the edge of zone, and we'll see that consistently through the 3rd to 5th zone. Even later on, he's not going to want to push too late, but let's look at some other examples of ZexRow chilling on the edge of zone. Here's going to be another example of ZexRow being complacent with getting in the edge of zone. Now, complacent may seem like it's a negative term, but I think he actually does this pretty well. He gets sniped here and could easily get focused, but he doesn't try and force the issue. He takes what he can get and simply just chill on the edge of zone. A lot of players would continue to try and get more center. I know a lot of people do like to try and get center, especially early zones. But look at the congestion and the terrain he would have to move through. It's not a bad play sometimes just to chill and take what you can get. Don't spend all those materials and get in zone. This is going to be another example of ZexRow just being okay with getting edge. It's nothing crazy. And just a little note here, we'll notice that there's a player in that box with the metal cone just to the side of him. He seems to like to go one above and one to the side when boxing near other players. I'm not sure if there's a preference on why he does that. It's just something that I've noticed. And then when he gets in these early zones, he lets his metal box completely build, and then he'll hop in the cone. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see what he can see here, but ZexRow's always chilling in his cones. So here's this next rotation, and ZexRow's moving late, and he's typically fine with this, or at least does it consistently. And I think part of the reason being is that he's comfortable rotating late because he's sitting in his cone looking at what's going on around him. Additionally, you'll see him continually rotate along height, which simplifies the game. Limits one angle that you have to block from, that you have to be careful of if you're constantly on height. It really helps you focus on what's in front and to the sides of you. You don't have to worry about above you. Additionally, it'll help save you a little materials. Now let's watch this play here because ZexRow is shambles. Luckily he has some health and shields and avoids getting sprayed, but he's able to get edge zone here and heal up. Again, just comfortable rotating towards edge. He's not going to be looking for too much and taking what he can get. It's one of the things that I want you guys to take away is, you know, be comfortable with what you can get. Don't try and force the issue and go places that you don't think you can. This is going to be a tough rotate for him. We'll see him attempt to make this rotate, but going a full water zone is going to be tough, especially when you just got beamed like that. End zone's already moving. It's a good attempt, and you see he tries to get up. Zex does not like to rotate on the low ground if he does not have to. It's typically about second height or a little below, or on height, like I said earlier. Pops Bizzle for a nice easy elim, which he needed for the health. Doesn't go for the elimination materials and loot because he doesn't know what's going on down there. It would take way too much time and be way too risky to drop down. In these first couple of games, this being game 2, ZexRow plays super risk averse and essentially plays for placement in these 2 games. He takes kills when he can, but really he's just going to go ahead and use that purple pump and shoot people on rotation. He's not going to be taking fights in rotation, if that makes sense. But nothing really to see here. Now he's in a shambles position. He's going to slowly run out of materials and be forced to take a bad fight. The only thing that we could be doing here, if we were ZexRow, is trying to go for that kill down below, because then some guy forces the issue on him. Sometimes it's a little better to choose the fight you want as opposed to allowing your opponent to choose the fight. And now he's kind of just stuck in a situation where he's taking a poor fight. But, I mean, overall a good play from him. I think he finished top 15 in that game, 14th with 2 elims. It's a good play considering he was shambles, gets a max distance zone the last 2, and is able to at least make it that far. Again, here's another rotation. This will be the last one I show you guys because I think you get the point. Coming in, comfortable, chilling edge. And here's another example of him liking to go up and to the side one because there's a player in that box right next to him. Just an interesting note. You know, be comfortable playing edge zone. Be comfortable making whatever rotate you have to in order to make it to the next zone. ZexRow is clearly comfortable doing that, and he's doing pretty well for himself in solo. So something I would take away if I were you guys. try and test different rotates. Test going to center zone, going to edge, going for a specific elevation within the zone, going to the pack side versus the less pack side, or the open side. You know, try these out for yourself and see what fits your play style, because some people may be more comfortable rotating towards the middle of zone because they don't like to focus on rotating later in the game, whereas ZexRow is clearly comfortable rotating later in the game. Just a little piece to take away, and let's move on to our next point. So we showed one example of an engage to disengage situation. In this piece, ZexRow had just gotten sniped to this player trying to fight him in Storm. Now, it's not the smartest by this player to try and take the fight, but you just sniped him for 110. And Zex makes a pretty solid play to essentially show off his purple pump. It's almost like when people in fights kind of broaden their shoulders, it shows what you have, which makes you look a little bigger than you are. And Zex is totally comfortable taking this fight because he has tons of bandages. The other player obviously does not feel comfortable taking this fight, because even after sniping ZexRow, he decides, you know what, I think it's best for me to get out of here. Just an example of how ZexRow is engaging to disengage. Sounds counterintuitive, but trust me, it works. A player is less likely to push you if you put damage on them and they know that you're willing to play aggressive and fight them back. Alright, this next piece is something you guys may consider small or trivial, but I always have people asking me, you know, when are you supposed to use what materials? And here we'll see ZexRow tends to always switch to hard mats when he's pressured. So he's building with wood under pressure, quickly switches to brick. An unfortunate shot there. The guy gets a couple in, and then once he takes damage, he moves into metal. So just a quick note, and something I think most people should do: when you're under pressure, switch to hard materials. Here we're going to see the patience and strategy of ZexRow. He's always planning his next rotate before he moves. Rarely will you see him make a rotate on the fly, so he sees his path and he gets going. Typically moves pretty safely, and then he likes to use other people's rotates as well. So he knows that guy's going to rotate. He rotates first to let that guy get in front of him, and then now he's going to follow his path. It's a pretty smart play here. Again, knowing that one player is behind him, wait for this player, grab a quick kill, because he had information that Diggy was whited earlier, so that's an easy elim. But again, saving materials, going to go into this other player's rotation. And that's an easy elim. But like I talked about in the beginning, he's got the harpoon to take advantage of the elimination without having to dive in the storm. That player rotating ahead of him is building the path and also somewhat distracting some of the lobby. ZexRow knows he can't rotate by himself, so he's going to follow this player again. And the more he gets pressured, the more he continues to move up in materials. And when I mean move up, he goes from brick to metal, and, you know, making sure not to spend too much of one, so if you get a refresh, it's not completely useless when you already have 500 brick or metal or wood, for example. But I showed this earlier. He always waits for his metal box to get built before he hops in a cone. And then here he goes again, planning his next rotate. Likes to rotate on high ground. This is going to be a pretty solid rotate from ZexRow as he's on height, has zone moving back towards him. Yeah. He doesn't tend to fight during these moving zones, though. Once he starts rotating, the most he's going to do is take a pump at someone and then keep moving. It's a smart play I've seen him do over and over again. See, like he broke that player's shield, could easily go force a fight here. but he's not going to. I believe it comes back to bite him in the ass here. But anyway, he goes for quick plays. He doesn't stay fighting too long. He knows that could really hurt you if you're stuck in a fight for way too long. Let's just watch this rotation finish out. I believe the rest of this game is fairly interesting, so I'd like to finish watching this one. We see some little technique here by ZexRow with the quick harpoon to break someone down. And again, he could have went for those materials, but he focuses on the rotate instead. He understands. Oof. But that's what I'm talking about, the one pump. If he gets the one pump, awesome. If not, he keeps moving. We see him hit that pump a lot. That's definitely got to be one of the reasons why he prioritizes getting a purple shotgun and upgrading each match. Let's see if he's able to do that during Anaheim. He wasn't contested during this, so it'll be a little different. And, you know, he dies to an unfortunate trap. You wouldn't have been able to see that if you were ZexRow, but it is what it is. We're going to go ahead and watch the final few minutes of Game 5. This is arguably, actually not arguably, this is ZexRow's best game. He comes out with 5 eliminations, finishes 4th place in this game, and it's just very well played. He won't be sitting in the cone for long, don't worry about that, but watch the control and, as Bala calls it, peace control in this fight that's about to happen. He knows he damages the player above, doesn't get greedy, bam, nails him again, grabs the 2 walls that the player was trying to escape from, traps him, and finishes the fight quickly. It's just a show of the technique and mechanics that ZexRow has. It's pretty impressive. He's going to go ahead, finish out, and reinforce himself because he's sitting on these extra materials. But again, it's a show of the patience as well, right? Because he cracked that player for over 100 when he was on that upper level, but drops back down into his box as to not take a bad fight, and then fights on his own terms. So, you know, people talk about what's the best thing you could do, what are some general strategies that'll work for you. Honestly, just being patient and playing your game is what I've seen from ZexRow. He doesn't force the issue typically. He will if he's in a situation to, where he knows there's not many people around him. But most times, ZexRow is focused on staying alive. This is just technique here to be able to make these plays and mechanics. Be honest with you guys, I could not have done this. I'd be dead already. But that's why we're watching ZexRow and not my own gameplay. Just a quick note. This will be the end of the video here. We'll watch out the last few minutes. Game 6 is not as productive for us to watch because he gets 50-50 and moving. Basically doesn't have to move for 5 minutes. So it's not as productive. But just repeating my points from above, you know, ZexRow gets that middle box once he gets 50-50, lets it build fully before he finishes, or before he hops up into the cone, sorry. And does that consistently. It's a smart play. You're not going to be able to see what's going on below once that metal finishes. So it's the little things, you know? The little things matter in this game when you're playing at this high of a level. Everyone can build, do 90s, all that kind of stuff, but can you do them at the right time? Can you do the right techniques? What are you doing and when? Again, weakening that wall so he doesn't have to stop his momentum. Just moving right through that wall while rotating. Just again, the little things, understanding the health of the wall. But we'll see he moves up. ZexRow typically likes to rotate late in these games during moving zones on height. Definitely consistent with what we see here. But he forced that player down, so now he has height. He's not going to continue to force the issue and take that fight. He will take this one, though, because he knows there's not too many people above. He's going to drop down. He does not want to take too much fall damage. Once he whites this player, he's going to be on the attack. Again, using that harpoon for a smart play. I mean, I have not seen someone use the harpoon as such great utility as I did while watching these replays from ZexRow. Uses it consistently, grab mats, pull people out of builds, or pull builds down, sorry. Didn't get to see him use it to, you know, grab someone. That would have been a pretty solid play. But yeah, remaining consistent, double checking. We see him there. What's going on in height? That's something that not every player does. You got to be able to know what's going on above you. The sound isn't good enough for you just to understand through audio what's going on. You got to look up. And it's easier when you're rotating on height because you don't have to do that, but every once in a while you should just take a peek. But while this game closes out, just want to recap a couple things that we see in his game. I'll let ZexRow close out the rest. So if we're starting from the beginning, he lands at Orchards all 6 games. He's uncontested. He does upgrade that shotgun to a purple pump at bare minimum when he does not get one. Then he's got great game awareness. Obviously, he's been playing the game for a long time. He understands rotations, how players like to move, how long he should stay in a place, when not to take fights, not forcing rotations too early, spends time looking around him, understanding his surroundings before a rotate. He likes to rotate late, typically into 3rd zones, and it winds up being very fruitful for him as it's free. So mid-game, I'd say Zex typically rotates late. Then late game, he's very dependent on what's going on around him. He's not going to do it one way or the other. He understands what's going on around him and makes his rotation accordingly. Then he holds out builds when passing players. This may be something small, but it's the slightest of timing that you can help yourself with if you're just holding builds when you're rotating past players instead of rotating with your pickaxe or weapon. It saves you from having to press one extra button and therefore saves you time. At first in this tournament, he was very risk adverse. And what I mean by that, he's not looking to take fights early or mid game. Rotations, he's not taking fights really at all. Late game, and he's getting his Storm Surge tags at a distance. He doesn't look to get tags or fight people early or close. And if he is, he's putting damage or getting in an advantageous position and walking away. Then, obviously, we saw he likes to rotate on height during late game. And he'll carry a harpoon. We can recap this. Just want to say thank you for the replays to ZexRow. Really appreciated this. Learned a good bit. I hope you guys did as well. I'll link his Twitter in the description as well as mine. As always, feel free to like and support if you guys enjoyed the video. That's all I got for you. I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching this episode of Hindsight Rotations.